Greetings, everyone. Glenn Kellaway from the basement. It's the weekend. It's Saturday. It's lunchtime. I'm getting pumped up for a live chat today with my good friend Larry Graves on the Canadian Stud Muffin channel at 3 o'clock. So if you watch this before 3, tune into Larry's channel for some fun conversation. I'm stealing a page from Mazzy, except I'm expanding it and doing a little different. Mazzy does these great whack-a-moles where he walks over and pulls 5 records at random out of his collection. I don't have a setup with a camera, so I can go, you can watch me do this and that and that. So you just have to trust me that I randomly pulled records. I didn't pull them from my heavy rotation pile, which is kind of more the current stuff that I talk about a lot. I pulled them from my filed collection, A to Z. If we can get through all of them, we will. If not, there might be 2 parts. So let's get started. First one I pulled, Brian Auger and Julie Driscoll in the Trinity. You guys familiar with this album? It's always been a favorite of mine. You know, when we had underground radio in the late 60s and early 70s, this record, there were songs on here that got a lot of play. You know, just Brian Auger with that cool organ, and Julie Driscoll had such a great voice. We got Tramp, Why Am I Treated So Bad? Season of the Witch was a song that always got played. I think it's the best version of Season of the Witch. If you've never heard this album, I see it in the wild all the time cheap. It's really good. If you're into like the late 60s type sound, you will love it if you haven't heard it. Okay, I guess I gotta put those away later. That's gonna be fun. See what I do for you guys? I know this got pulled. It did. I promise it did. But my favorite David Bowie album, Low. I would have thought that was be in my heavy rotation pile, but it was filed, and I wasn't gonna put it back and pull something else. So you got David Bowie, Low. Larry lent me this on a CD exchange a year and a half ago or whatever, and blew my mind and turned me into an absolute David Bowie fanatic. Great album. I love the instrumentals on this album. Number 3, Chicago 2, which I love the CTA album. That Chicago Transit Authority album is just one of the great debuts of all time, but I think this is the better album. It's the one I play all the time. And there's a cheap CD you can buy that just came out I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 2-3 years ago, that Stephen Wilson did a remix on this album. So if you're into CDs, grab that. And the vinyl always sounds good. Chicago 2, great album. I kind of gave up on them after that. D's, I ended up with Deep Purple, and also ended up with my favorite Deep Purple album, which is Deep Purple, self-titled, their 3rd album, MK1 edition of the band. Absolute masterpiece in my opinion. Might be top 20 album of all time for me. Eagles, I don't have a lot of E's. It was going to be Eagles or Steve Earle. And Desperado and On the Border are the only 2 I have on vinyl. So I had a 50-50 chance of pulling my favorite one. This album is very important to me because it was very inspiring for me to pick up a banjo and learn how to play, because Bernie Leadon right there is just one heck of a banjo player, guitar player, instrumental player, whatever. Talented guy, Mr. Leadon. Sorry he left the Eagles. F, Fleetwood Mac, Before the Beginning, Volume 1, live 1968. This is band-authorized, rare live performances that pinpoint the beginning of one of the world's most beloved bands, featuring performances by Peter Green, Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, and Jeremy Spencer. 3-album set. Fantastic set if you can find it. I'm not sure if it's still available or not. I don't know how limited it was, but wonderful set. They do Madison Blues on here, and Have You Ever Loved a Woman, Stop Messing Around, Long Tall Sally, Willie and the Hand Jive, Shake Your Moneymaker. Great pictures of the band in here. Every one of the inner sleeves has, I won't pull them all out, but you can see there's like this a fantastic set. 3 records. It sounds really good. There's a volume 2 as well. But yeah, check that out if you're a Fleetwood Mac fan of the original band, and that's a pretty good frickin' album. Geez, I didn't pull Grateful Dead. I didn't pull Genesis. I pulled Arlo Guthrie, Hobo's Lullaby. Ry Cooder does an appearance on this album as a session man. This is an amazing album. My favorite Arlo Guthrie album. It had the big hit of Steve Goodman's City of New Orleans on this album. Arlo had a big hit of that, and really, really good record if you like. I guess Arlo's kind of called Americana. I would do that. H. What came out of the H's? Not Hendrix. Nope, not for me. But my friend Steve at All the World's a Stage will be happy. Ian Hunter got pulled. Ian Hunter, you are never alone with a schizophrenic. Did you hear that? You're never alone with a schizophrenic. I'm a schizophrenic, and I am too. So that's kind of what they say. I shouldn't make fun of mental illness. Make sure you look after your mental health. It's very important. Great album. I love that song, Just Another Night. It was always a great song live. Yeah, Ian Hunter's never made a bad record. They all rock. So this was on the Chrysalis label. Okay, what's next? We're into the J's. H-I. No, we're not. We're into the I's, and I have no I vinyl, and I only have one I CD, so I went and pulled it. Iron Butterfly, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. I guess I need this on vinyl. Maybe you get Ball or something. I need some I's in my collection. I don't like In Excess, so we're not going there. But this is a cool, actually, one. It's got one of those what do they call it? Truncated covers that kind of do all that acid flashback type stuff. And of course, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida came with a book. And yeah, what can I say? Iron Butterfly. Sorry for not showing that in vinyl. I had to pull one thing just to make sure I fulfilled the promise of a full alphabet full of records. J. One of the great debut albums, Ricky Lee Jones. Ricky Lee Jones. This is a great record from start to finish, man. Easy Money's on here. Chucky's in Love. Last Chance Texaco. Danny's All-Star Joint, which is my favorite song on the album. I love Ricky Lee, and that is a promo copy of this album. And yeah, so I actually bought this used, and the person who owned it originally was blind, obviously. There's Braille. They've got Braille on it. I never took it off. Yeah, killer debut. Ricky Lee's just got a new album out doing all kinds of jazz standards, which looks pretty good. Very sparse arrangements. I'm thinking about picking it up. Oh, look at this. For K's, I didn't pull King Crimson or the Kinks. How's that? I ended up with Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. Look at this album. Original Parlophone. I remember picking this up in a used record store for $5. And it was actually in really good shape, and I love that Parlophone label. Is just amazing. It's a really good record for early British invasion stuff. It sounds great, and yeah, I mean, Billy J. Kramer, he had a couple of hits written by John and Paul, Bad to Me and Little Children. This also came with a ordering records for your collection, an original Parlophone flyer saying what albums are coming out. There's a Matt Monroe album, Spike Milligan, Peter Sellers, and Sophia Loren. How's that? Yeah, there's some kind of cool. I don't know if this had any Billy J's hits on it. He does Great Balls of Fire on here. I Call Your Name, Lennon McCartney, he does that. And he does the Do Run Run, Phil Spector. Very cool. That's a neat album to have in my collection for $5. Led Zeppelin didn't come out. Lowest of the Low came out, and my favorite Lowest of the Low album, Shakespeare My Butt. I have like 4 or 5 Lowest of the Low albums. They are playing next Friday night, June 16th, in Oshawa, Ontario, at the Biltmore Theatre. If you're in Southern Ontario, do not miss that show. One of my favorite bands, definitely my favorite Canadian band. Great indie album, Shakespeare My Butt, which is being reissued on vinyl, coming out soon. You hear that, Randy Nelson? He was looking for that album. M's, Marshall Tucker, my favorite Marshall Tucker album, Searching for a Rainbow. I was a big fan of these guys back in the 70s. Can't You See's on this album. Fire on the Mountain, which I play on the banjo, and one of their great songs. I've always played it in bands I was in and stuff, so that song's really cool. Searching for a Rainbow is a great song. Excellent album. Toy and Tommy Caldwell, Doug Gray on vocals. Willie Nelson comes out in the end. Stardust. I have this, and I have Redheaded Stranger on vinyl. I turned my dad onto this album because my dad obviously grew up with all that kind of music, and this is Willie doing, Blue Skies and All of Me and September Song and Sunny Side of the Street, Moonlight in Vermont. Beautiful sounding record, and Willie does great job on these songs with his harmonica and his guitar and everything. This is a great record. One of my favorite guitar players in the O's. There wasn't many O's. I think I had this, and I had a band from Toronto back from the 70s called the Original Sloth Band. I don't think I had too much else. But Shuggy Otis. This was gifted to me in VCLT from the great Aaron Mutha Alomar. A couple of years ago, Aaron sent a bunch of records, and Shuggy Otis, one of my favorite guitar players. And Shuggy is same age as me. We're both turning 70 this year. Do you believe it? We should get together, Shuggy. I'm a big fan of Peter Case, singer-songwriter. I don't know if you know him, but Peter Case is one of his original bands. I believe he had one just before this, but the Plimsouls. Again, this is another record I found. Really cheap. I think I picked it up for like $7 in a used store. Great frickin' album this is. Really good. Great garage band. Fantastic. The Plimsouls. I think my friend Vinyl Richie is probably more than aware of the Plimsouls, being based in the LA area. Only had one Q. Wasn't hard to pull. It's a Quicksilver comp, the anthology. So this kind of covers everything. I like Quicksilver. I got most of their stuff on CD. This is on the Orange Capital label, so I'm assuming it's a repress. And or maybe not. Maybe that's when it came out. I don't know, but Quicksilver, great band from San Francisco. The R's, Rolling Stones didn't come out, Rush didn't come out, but what came out? The Rising Suns. This is a band in the 60s. One album, Ry Cooder and Taj Mahal. That was their first band before they became important artists in their own right. Rising Suns, this is a reissue. Bluesy, 60s rockish. They do Statesboro Blues. They do Take a Giant Step. They do Candyman, Walking Down the Line, Let the Good Times Roll. Taj Mahal, Ry Cooder, Jesse Lee Kincaid, Gary Marker, Kevin Keeley. Interesting album, kind of historic. Oh, the S's. No Springsteens, no whoever else, Spirit, whoever else. We ended up with Rod Stewart and Gasoline Alley. I have a hard time deciding what my favorite Rod Stewart album is, if it's Gasoline Alley or Every Picture Tells a Story. I think Every Picture Tells a Story is a stronger album from start to finish, but Gasoline Alley is my favorite Rod Stewart song, and there's some great tracks on this album. Really hard to choose. This was on the Mercury label, and this was the album that was released just before Every Picture Tells a Story. Oh, what's next? The Tease. Pete Townsend, Ronnie Lane, Rough Mix. Great records. We did a chat with on Larry's channel with Mazzy the other day, and someone asked about this record, and it's a great record, really is. Atco label. If you like Pete Townsend, you'll love that album. Oh, the U's. Humphreys McGee, not Humphreys with an H, Humphreys without the H. They are a jam band from the Chicago area. I wonder if my buddy Steve is aware of them. I'm a big fan. There's a live album called Live at Murat, or Murat, which is a fantastic live album. But a couple of their I've got a couple of their albums that I've picked up cheap on Amazon warehouse sales, and they're just great musicians. So this one's on a pinky kind of colored vinyl. But Humphreys McGee, great jam band. Under the V's, Vanilla Fudge, debut album. I believe it's the debut album. It has Ticket to Ride on it. People get ready. She's Not There. Bang Bang. You Keep Me Hanging On, which was their big hit of their version of that song. And Eleanor Rigby. I mean, this is heavy 60s rock at its best. Vanilla Fudge on the Atco label. Classic album. Set me free, why don't you, babe? W's. Tom Waits comes out, and Tom's last album that he gave us, Bad as Me. I really love this album. It's got some great tracks on here, and it's got a duet with Keith Richards called Last Leaf on the Tree, which is a beautiful song. This is very Captain Beefheartish, I would say, but really great album. I wish Tom would give us one more. But if he leaves us with that one, he did good. Okay, we're getting to the end. X. Let's see. XTC. I don't have anything else. I have 4 on vinyl. I have a whole bunch of stuff on CD. But Black Sea was the one that kicked it off, started it for me, turned me into an obsessive XTC fan. One of my top 10 bands of all time now. Andy Partridge is also same age as me, turning 70 this year. Phenomenal songwriter. This is just, the Black Sea is just a freaking brilliant album. And again, thanks to Larry Graves for turning me on to that. Under the Y's. No, yes. No, it's got to be Neil. Neil Young. He starts with a Y. Live at Massey Hall. What a great album. Great sounding album. Acoustic performance from Neil's performance at Massey Hall in 1971. This album absolutely sounds amazing. I don't know if it's been reissued or not, but it's a great record. Massey Hall, Neil Young, and Zed's. Let's see, it would have been one Warren Zevon album, one ZZ Top album, and the rest would be Frank Zappa. So Zappa ended up getting pulled. Absolutely free. The second Mothers of Invention album. First one, Freak Out, I was introduced to fairly early, so he was on my radar, but then when this came out, I frickin' loved it. This one sent me over the top. One of my favorite Mothers of Invention albums. I saw them in 1978, right around this time, and or 1968, right around this time at Convocation Hall in Toronto. Pretty crazy show, and it was a little over my head, all the jazzy stuff and everything they were doing, all that wacky stuff, and but still I got to see them, and it was pretty cool, and absolutely free. That's it. That's 26 albums in 19 minutes. See you on the chat. Have a great day. Please press the like button, the subscribe button. Talk soon.